Hey everybody, got off to a little slow start here. Anyway, I'll tune up later. Not seen you playing that Black 335 before. Yeah, it's actually a guitar I've had a really long time. I've had this guitar since 1979. And I had somewhat retired it when I started playing. I have a 64 335 that's a Sunburst that maybe you've seen me play. But this was the first 335 that I had. I got it new in 79. As you can see, I've worn a lot of the finish off the neck. There's a sticker on it that I put on, trying to get it out of the glare. Oh, it's upside down too. Years ago. I find that to be useful information to remember when I'm playing. But yeah, this is my first good guitar, and I played it when I started playing professionally. I played this guitar on Give Me One Reason, the Tracy Chapman song, and played it on a lot of the first Norah Jones records. So this is my guitar, my one and only for a long time. And now I've got some others. But I go back to it, and it feels really good because it's a dear old friend. I've had it for 40 years. What does that extra switch do? This switch you're talking, right, because this is just a pickup selector like on typical Gibson guitars. This is a coil tap switch. I don't use it that much. It turns the humbuckers, turn the tremolo off, turns the humbuckers into single coil pickups. So that's single coil. This is the neck pickup humbucking. Here's single coil. So a little quieter, a little thinner sound. I didn't find it useful that much, but occasionally I'll use it. If it's a gig where I'm just playing one guitar the whole time and I'm not switching guitars around, it's useful. Hey, how is the sound when I'm playing and talking? Should I send a little more gain to the stream, or does this feel like a pretty good level. Or I could actually cool it down a little bit if it's too hot. Uh, I'm still kind of new at this. Sounds good. Okay, Alex, I'll take it. I'm going to move back just a little bit so you can see my face and see the guitar. Okay, cool. So I was just playing some blues. It helps me uh, relax and just play, not thinking too much. But I'd love to answer some questions if you have um, any questions about anything: guitar stuff, theory stuff, music stuff, career stuff, practice stuff. That's really what this time is for. So I'm looking at the folks here. Alex, David, it's funny. See you again. Hi, David, again. Uh, Cutie Patootie, Jake. Um, yeah, what questions might you have? That's really what I want to spend this time with is Q&A. So bring the Q. When you're playing a blues, are you typically playing the chords or staying in the root key? Yeah. So David, I think you mean like, um, do I just play one scale, or do I try to change as the chords are changing? Like this is E7, now A, and here's D. So now I'm going to try to play the chords. I'll call them out. Back to A. E. D7. Back to A. And so, David, if that's what you're asking, do I stay in just kind of one scale that's the parent key that we're in, or do I try to address the chords as they go by? Is that what you're asking, David? Seems like it. Seems like that's what you're asking. Okay. The answer is yes and yes. It's pretty typical in blues playing to just use one scale. So I'm going to try to do that now, and just show you what that sounds like. So I'm just going to play. We're in A, so I'm going to play this very familiar box. Switch to the front pickup. So that's fine. That's useful. that's very much in the language of playing blues. But there's a whole other layer of stuff going on that you could address. You know, if you think of music as kind of three big buckets of rhythm, melody, and harmony. It We'll leave rhythm to the last for now. But if you're just trying to play melody, it's useful to stay in one scale, because if you're changing scales every bar or something like that, it's really hard to make any melody out of that. If you think of the great melody writers of of any era, whether you're talking about Mozart or Paul McCartney or um, I don't know, Bruno Mars, or somebody recent contemporary. most songs that we know and love and that we sing along basically stay in one key. So that's where melodies, that's the soil that we grow the fruits of the melodies in, is that it's, and it doesn't mean that there's never any chromaticism or non-diatonic notes, but that's mostly where it's at. So it's very, if you're trying to play melody, playing staying in one scale is a useful approach. But if you want to address harmony, then yeah, you can. And the thing that's really hard, I'm saying this to David, I'm also saying it to myself and to anybody, everybody. The thing that's really hard is that you do kind of want to do both at the same time. Like, and I can't really explain how to do it except to do both of those at the same time. To try on the A chord to hit a chord tone like C sharp, and on the D7 maybe to hit a chord tone like C natural. And so you're communicating that something has changed. It doesn't mean you just play those two notes, but you can, I got to the C by kind of dancing around it a little bit there. So um, I think those basic, like, play the chord tone things. Like, I'm just, everything that's happening on the third and fourth string is, could be a chord tone. This is the third and the seven, or flat seven really, of A. This is the third and flat seven of D, or D7. And this is the third and flat seven of E7. So as those move around, I can target them. But if we get too literally into just playing arpeggios, it can sound like we're in music school, and we're, well, you might be in music school, but uh, you don't want to sound like you're in music school, even if you are in music school. So you learn the arpeggios, uh, but as soon as you can, try to find melodic stuff, like kind of comb through the arpeggios, simplify them, leave some notes out, see if you can think about the arpeggios without that meaning that you play, play the arpeggio. So if you just see them or hear them as places you could go and then kind of wander in and out of them, that can be a way to do both in your soloing. So, okay, David, I hope that's helpful. Hi, Sly, music maker, Jordan Tupper. Jordan Tupper, hey, Jordan asked a really good question. Now the questions are rolling in. What jazz standards would you recommend learning to a guitarist who's just getting into jazz? Thanks, Adam. Jordan, if you're still there, that's a great question, because repertoire is really great. If you need to know some tunes, so I would try to learn some blues tunes first of all, so that when you play a blues at a jazz, in a jazz context, like at a jazz jam session or whatever, it's not just a blues, like it's a tune. There's a specific melody, and so you got to know some of those, and also within them, there's often good usable jazz vocabulary. So when you learn the melodies, you're learning something that you could also expand and work with. So um, uh, like Billy's Bounce by Charlie Parker is pretty easy to play. You could learn it. It's in the real book. You can probably find a chart of it online. Um, you might have heard this tune. Uh, uh, anyway, I'm not doing the greatest job of playing that tune, but that's a tune that you should know. It's called Billy's Bounce. It's by Charlie Parker. Another Charlie Parker blues is Blues for Alice. Maybe a simpler blues to learn would be Blue Monk by Thelonious Monk. So those would be some blues tunes you should know. Um, Autumn Leaves, it's one of those tunes everybody likes to play still, even though it's been played a lot. So yeah, Autumn Leaves is a good tune. Warning on that one: some people play it in E minor or G major or E minor. Some people play it in G minor or B flat major. So if you want to play that tune, it's worth learning it in both of those keys. Most jazz tunes have a common key that everybody seems to like to play them in. Um, and it's always a good idea to be able to transpose any tune that you know into different keys. But that tune in particular, commonly people play it in E minor or G minor. It kind of depends on what your favorite record of it is, really. And there's different recordings of it. Um, what's another tune? All the Things You Are by Jerome Kern is a really nice tune. That's fun to play. Everybody seems to like to play it, and it's good to know. There's a song called I Hear a Rhapsody, and sometimes people play that as a ballad, sometimes people play it up tempo. You should learn it both ways. Some, again, like I was saying about Autumn Leaves being in two keys, most songs, if it's a ballad, it's a ballad. Like there's a song called My Romance. You should learn that song. It's a beautiful song. Pretty much everybody plays that song as a ballad. But I Hear a Rhapsody, I've heard it played different ways. What's another one? Um, uh, All of Me. It's that tune I feel like is maybe a little different from any of the tunes I've mentioned because it's not about a lot of 2/5 movements. It moves in. It was written a little bit, earlier than some of the jazz standards, and so it moves in a slightly different kind of way. But it's a great tune to know. All of Me. Um, uh, let's see. Those are good tunes to know. I'm sure I'll think of others as I'm. The way my brain works is I'll answer some other question and then some other standards will come to mind. Uh, those are the tunes that are likely to come up at jam sessions, and that if you got together with somebody to play, even if it wasn't a jam session, if it was just one other person, if they know jazz tunes, they will know all of the tunes that I just mentioned. Okay. Music man, I'd love to know how that Wolf recording session came together. If you get a moment to chat about that, music maker, are you still here? Are you still here, music maker? If you are, I will um, answer that question. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So playing on the Vulfpeck session, for those of you who don't know, I played on a song called El Chepe, uh, which features Rich Hinman on pedal steel guitar and myself on guitar and the Wolfpeck regular crew, Theo Katzman on drums and Jack Stratton on guitar and Woody on piano and oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm forgetting their amazing bass player. But anyway, it's all the regular Wolfpack guys and me and Rich. So you know, I had moved to LA and I was living in a neighborhood that was, as it turned out, pretty close to where Jack Stratton was living, or I don't know. I used to run into him at this coffee shop on York Boulevard in Highland Park called Cafe de Leche. And most of the time, he'd be in there on his laptop with headphones on, drinking his coffee or whatever. And I left him alone. But one day I said, "Hey," because I was already a fan of their a lot of their YouTube videos, and so I just wanted to introduce myself and say, "Hey." So we struck up a conversation, and then Rich and I were playing some gigs with our band. We have a band called Rich Hinman versus Adam Levy in the same neighborhood. There's a bar also on York Boulevard in Highland Park called the York. And those guys started coming to the Wolfpack guys started coming to our gigs when we would play, which was really tickled me because, like I said, I was just really a fan of what they were doing musically and visually and just the whole thing. I really, actually, some of my favorite videos are the mashup things that Jack did. There's one that's a Bernard Purdy drum lesson, and what is her name? Is it Ethel Caffey Austin? I can't remember names anymore. Anyway, he mashed up a gospel piano instructional video with a Bernard Purdy drum video, and it's just incredibly great. So, anyway, they started coming to our gigs, and then next thing I knew, I got to know Theo a bit, and they said, "Hey, would you guys want to do a tune with us?" And Rich and I said, "Sure, that would be amazing." So they described it just a little bit, that it would have kind of a train beat and maybe a bit of a JJ Cale kind of vibe. And I don't think they sent us a demo or anything, but just kind of described it in those kind of broad terms. And then we showed up, Rich and I, and Jack basically taught us the tune in the room. Well, there's a bunch of guys with GoPros standing around, and we're in a studio with mics up on the amps and everything. And so he just kind of ran us through it on his cheapo Strat that he has, and then we did one kind of real rehearsal, and then made some adjustments about where the breaks. There's some stop time breaks, and just kind of did some tweaks to the arrangement, and then we did one more pass, and Jack was like, "Cool, that's great." And that was it. I mean, I think we spent less than an hour together in that room, which is amazing to me, because when you hear it and see it, it sounds and looks and feels cohesive. But it really, I think that's a testament to how clear it was in Jack's mind before we got there. He didn't give us all the information, but he really knew what he wanted, and that's how it happened. So pretty loose. uh, yeah, those old videos were pretty. Do you have any thoughts on how to increase your musical flow? Omega, that's such a heavy question. Tell me more. I'm not sure what you mean. Um, in the meantime, what would you getting fingers to be more accurate and precise in both hands? Uh, wow. Okay, fingers to be more accurate and precise in both hands. I would say practice really slowly. Get your metronome out and practice at 40 and get really used to it. Maybe if you're feeling sporty, you can crank it all the way up to 50. But really get everything, uh, be able to play at a slow tempo just means that you're really managing your both hands in a good way, getting really clear. So that's one thing. Practice at a slow tempo. Another thing is practice without your guitar. Sing the things that you're trying to play, whether it's transcribing something from a record or just a musical idea or anything. Like, get really, really clear in your mind with specifically what it is that you're trying to do. A lot of the problems I think that happen that seem like technical problems, to me, in my own experience playing and also as a teacher, I think as often as not, the problem is really just a lack of clarity in your mind about what it is that you're trying to convey. So put the guitar down, get really clear with what it is you're trying to do, sing it, imagine it sounding good and feeling good, and pick up the guitar only at the end. um, so slow practice, singing without the guitar. Another thing that I find is really helpful is, um, playing things in different positions, so that getting so that you don't wind up getting your fingers into a tangle that you're not used to. Like this morning, I was working on Blues for Alice. This is one of these Charlie Parker tunes that I mentioned, and so it kind of seems like it wants to be played in this position. It's in F, so it's like. So I'll just stop there as the first four bars. I play it there until I could get it pretty smooth. Then I might try it in another position. Uh, hmm. little awkward. So I'd spend some more time there and try to smooth it out. You could try to play it down here. You could play it up an octave. Uh, hmm. uh, just try stuff like that, so that any musical idea you have um, isn't just one muscle memory, but it's clear in your mind, and you've tried it in different positions. I find that to be helpful. Um, mm, Warm up. Don't pick up your guitar first thing and uh, just start. Playing a bunch of fast stuff as I see people do. Start with really that one intention. Set an intention for your practice time that you really want your both hands to be doing well on their own and together, and then practice just with that in mind. Just like there's an exercise I've mentioned here and maybe elsewhere that's from the Gene Bertoncini book, which has to do with playing chromatically up one string. Not perfect, but you get the idea. So you would do that on all the strings. There's a exercise from Miles Okazaki's book, which has to do with playing chromatically in one position with a particular rules about when you stretch. So you stretch back, going ascending, and out this way, descending. So like this. And that's way too fast. But I would do that slowly. That's in Miles Okazaki's book, Fundamentals of Guitar. That's really useful. There's some warm up stuff in Scott Tennett's book, Pumping Nylon, which is really for classical guitar, but just the 10 or 12 pages about warm ups, I think, is really good. And it's meant to be classical technique, but you could certainly do it with a pick. Jim Kanga says, what do you study for right hand? Did you study classical? I did not study classical. I've learned some Spanish pieces of guitar pieces, but I never took any classical guitar lessons. I studied with Ted Green a little bit, and most of that had to do with playing fingerstyle. Um, I studied with Jimmy Weibel a little bit, and that also had to do with playing fingerstyle. He has a very particular Jimmy Weibel did have a very particular right hand technique. Um, if you're just trying to do like really basic, get your right hand in shape, the Mauro Giuliani 120 right hand arpeggios is great. It's just basically this. It's just two chords, C and G7 over B. And I'm just using these fingers. And then that's exercise number one. Number two, rolls everything. Exercise number three, rolls the other way. There's 120 of them. They're all just 2 bars long. Really great for getting your right hand in shape. Also, Travis picking, which is a completely different kind of thing, is good to learn. There's a book by Mark Hansen called Contemporary Travis Picking or something like that. Just lots of really practical. All the possible variations. So, I'd learn, 3 or 4 Travis kinds of patterns, and then just start learning songs that are you know, uh, challenging to the right hand. Julia by the Beatles is sort of a modified Travis picking. Learn a Chet Atkins tune. Try to find an easier one so it's not too hard. Just develop different kind of patterns that you can play, and then try writing things. That sometimes could be pattern based, sometimes could be just more freestyle. Um, but I find the biggest thing with playing fingerstyle is just you know throw away or at least hide all of your picks and just make yourself play fingerstyle for a month or 6 weeks or whatever, and just make it a habit until it just starts to feel a little bit more natural. It Some people really freak out about it, and you can get really into technique and nail care and all that stuff. Um, but my road to fingerstyle has been pretty improvisational, just kind of learning as I go. Paul Owens, when learning a new piece, there's a balance between moving forward and learning more bars and perfecting what you already have. Any tips? Um, hmm. Uh, I mean, what tends to work for me is learning complete musical phrases. Like if a section has an 8 bar or 12 bar or 16 bar phrase, you may need to chunk it down into 2 bars and 4 bars, or things like that. But um, eh, I find it useful to maybe simplify the piece and think of the melody that's involved and be able to play the melody all the way through. If it's a piece that has counterpoint, I might just cut it in half and just play just the bass melody, or just the treble melody, and get one phrase at a time. If I break it down into bars, 1 bar or 2 bars, I think a lot of people do that. So I don't think it's a bad idea. It seems to be a way that people really learn things. But it helps it stick in my brain if I can somehow keep it in the context of at least a phrase, if not longer than that. So I'll try to learn a whole phrase rather than just a couple of bars. Um, Jim says, I usually play hybrid but need more facility for playing melody on top. So you play like pick and fingers, that's what it is. Um, I don't have any specific exercises for bringing the melody out other than learn some pieces where you kind of have to do that, like learn the Claw by Jerry Reed, or learn a couple of Chet tunes, or learn a Doc Watson tune or two. Like, I think that stuff, I'm sure there are exercises that would help that, but I don't know any. um, you could make up your own exercises with that in mind, or you could just work on tunes again with an intention. So I'm learning. I'm saying this could be your mantra or whatever. I'm learning uh, Deep River Blues, the Doc Watson arrangement, but I'm really like the reason I'm learning it is to bring out melody. So make melody the main thing. I wanted to mention this exercise. It might help you, Jim, and also might help some other people. It has to do with playing blues in counterpoint in whole notes. I got this from Ken Rosser. He's a great guitar player. I don't know if he invented it or uh, borrowed it, but he taught it to me. And it's just playing two voices in a blues and 12-bar blues. So I'm going to do it with pick and fingers. You could also just do it with fingers. 3, 4. 3, 4. right? So, in doing that, it really helps your ears just focus on the counterpoint of it so that there's two distinct melodies. You're not worried about, chord forms. You're just trying to grab two notes. And you could do that where you're trying to bring out the lower note a little louder or bring out the upper note or adjust as you go. But that's a really good kind of basic exercise. Um, uh, Jimmy Weibel's etudes, they're really, really hard. But if you could learn like etude number one, he played it with his, without a pick, but yeah, you could absolutely play it with pick and fingers. I saw Bruce Forman do exactly that a couple years ago at a concert, and he just used the etude as a kind of connecting thing between a couple of other tunes, and that's how he did it. So if you don't know Jimmy Weibel, see, he was a teacher and player and wrote a bunch of etudes. Um, if anyone here wants Etude One, let me know. You can just email me at adam@adamlevy.com, and I think I've got that Etude, and I can share it with you. It's kind of hard to find otherwise because it's in a book that's long out of print, and when you can find it, it tends to be insanely expensive on eBay. So I'm glad to send you Etude One, and you could work on that. That's really great for just playing counterpoint. And I'm out of shape, but it's something like this. I'm gonna mess it up a lot. I can't. I don't have it clear in my mind, so I can't play it. But it's great because it sounds like chords, but he never really plays a chord. It's all just two notes, and your brain fills in the rest and makes it into chords, but it's really just counterpoint. Um, you have the book. Wait, you have Jim. You have the Etudes book, or you have the classical country book? Yeah, and never a bar. Jimmy never played a bar. Hello, R.J. Randall in the UK. Hi, Jim. Which book? You have classical country? Oh my gosh! Wow, that's incredible. Hey, Sly. Got to go. Okay. Well, thanks for being here. Appreciate you turning in. Yeah, always think of the destination. Gosh, I just saw that you wrote that. Yes. Always think of the destination. Think of where you're going more than where you are. That helps both hands to be really clear. Jim, the Etudes book is great. It's great. It's great. Um, if you can find his classical country book, just keep scouring the internet. They come up here and there, but it's just one of those things that's out of print and rare, so people will charge whatever for it. But it's got his first 6 etudes and all of these little exercises. Like the first 20 pages is just exercises that set you up to be able to play the etudes. It's great, super great. All right, I'm going to scroll a little bit here just so I can see if I've missed any good questions. Oh, Alex, I missed. Yes, it got lost. I'm so sorry. Um, hey, and also I see a question from Amber Dawn about playing with pain and stretches, and so if you're still here, Amber, I'll get to that. But Alex was, I think, the first person here, but I've somehow missed his question. Alex, are you still here? Uh, if you're still here, I'll answer your question anyway. Um, would love some insight into how to start landing on more interesting chord tones. Um, Really, honestly, just make yourself do it until it becomes something that's more natural. So earlier on, I was playing along with this little blues I have on my looper, and I was mostly playing kind of basic chord tones. So now I'm going to try to just play the 9 of every chord. So we're going to D, it's the 4 chord. So here's the 9 of D. And now I'm going to play the 9 of A when it comes up here. So I didn't just go to the 9, but I kind of stair stepped up to it. Now here comes E, so I'm going to play the 9 of E, the 9 of D, and then the 9 of A. So I'm just making myself play those notes and trying to find musical ways to get them. So now I'm going to play sharp 11s. Or flat 5s, if you will, but I think of them as sharp 11. So that's sharp 11 on the A, sharp 11 on the D. This is 12 bar blues. And here's the D sharp. Now I know I want to get to A sharp on the E chord. So I try to think about the destination. Now I want to get to D sharp. Now I'm going to play 13s. So that's B is the 13 on the D7. F sharp is the 13 on the A. Here's the 13 on the D. 13 on the A. 13 on the E. 13 on the D. And, I'm trying to do that in real time. Geez, I hope that's helpful, Alex. Like, that's how I learned to start hearing that stuff, was just to, it's kind of the bluntest way to get there. But I found it to be really helpful. And then over time, you start to learn about, triad pairs, and there's a lot of other ways to get into that sound. But I would start by just go there and then think about how you can step into it, and always be looking ahead. Don't wait until the change to think about where you're going, especially at that tempo. Plenty of breathing room, plenty of time, and just start to write lines. If you're good at writing music on paper, or even in tab or whatever, like, write out some lines that use those tones. And if you write 5 different lines, probably one of them will sound good, maybe 2. Figure out why the stuff that sounds good, and then the lines that don't sound that great, maybe there's some way to fix them. Like, I think writing lines is a really useful exercise that I don't hear people talk about that much. If literally writing it on paper or in the computer or whatever you use for writing is just too weird for you, at least in your mind, compose some licks. But try to be clear that they're composed, and they're not like kind of sort of this or kind of sort of that, but they're really a specific lick. Or write a tune, and make yourself incorporate these kind of lines. And in the beginning, it'll just be like hit or miss. But if you really study the stuff that feels like a hit, and try to avoid the stuff that feels like a miss, it could be really helpful. I just realized the time, and so I have to go here in a minute. So I'm going to answer 2 questions that are already in the feed. One from RJ Randall. I was wondering if you have any tips on sight reading. Yes. Just do it a lot. Do it a lot. Like, if there is a used bookstore that you can get to, I know it's COVID, so it's hard to get to a bookstore, and you just might live someplace that doesn't have a good used bookstore. But assuming that you can get your hands on some books, just get a ton of stuff and just read all the time. There's no substitute for just reading a lot. That's how you get good at sight reading. Other stuff that's useful, I found, is learning to look at a page and memorize a measure of music. Like this is Blues for Alice, right? It would be useful if you could look at the first bar and then close your eyes and play it. It would be great. It would be even greater if you could look at the first two bars and then close your eyes and play it. Or look at the first three bars and close your eyes and play it. People that are really good sight readers are not looking through, a keyhole, you know, or some tiny little aperture. They can look at a page of music and then look away because if you're in an orchestra, you've got to watch the conductor, or if you're in any kind of serious reading situation, you can't be reading like this. It doesn't work. So if you can't get to a bookstore, just find PDFs. Subscribe to this website called Scribed, SCRIBD, and there's just tons of stuff you can download. Just read all the time. Make it a habit. Um, Destigmatize it. It's not that reading is not that hard. So many musicians in an orchestra are reading. Don't overthink it. Just gosh, you guys are asking me these amazing questions at the end, and I have to run. uh Jim, that's great. Everybody, oh man. uh it, well, Marcy wanted to know what it was like working with Vulfpeck and Norah Jones. I already talked about Vulfpeck. Working with Norah Jones was just amazing because it started so modestly. We were just playing in little clubs for no money for a really long time. It didn't get to be a big deal for a few years, and then it happened so gradually that it just felt really natural. And next thing I knew, we're playing to 1,000 people, and then 5,000 people, and then more. And it was great. She encouraged me to be a songwriter, which I'd never done before. She encouraged me to be myself and not try to play any particular way except my way. She was always writing new songs, and she was ever evolving. Between the first, second, and third record, her music changed a lot, and I was just trying to keep up. Overall, a really really great experience. Like anything, there were good days and bad days, um, but it was great. I'm really grateful for that time that I got to have in her band. Uh, oh gosh, so many good questions, and I really got to go. Um, oh, James McKay, that's a great question. Any thoughts on narrative when invited to play on someone else's song? Do you think about storytelling and shaping your part? I do, yes. Be a storyteller. Say something. Scales are useless. Licks are semi useless. You really have to look at the words of the song. Like, if a songwriter hired me for a session and they said, "Well, pick one. I can either give you the chord chart or the lyric sheet," I would take the lyric sheet over the chord chart. The chords I can hear. The lyrics, it's great to get a chance to really look at it on the page and see what the story is. That helps me think about what my character is, and I can be a character in the narrative. Um, I also think about earlier in this, I talked about the three buckets of rhythm, melody, and harmony. Try to listen to the song in terms of rhythm, in terms of melody, in terms of harmony, and create a part that um, complements what other people are doing. Doesn't mean that you have to uh, mirror them or copycat them, but be aware that there's going to be somebody's doing something rhythmic, somebody's doing something harmonic, somebody's doing something melodic. What information is already there that you can highlight or contrast or shed some new light on? That's part of our job, and all at the same time to do something that's cohesive. So if somebody just solos your whatever you're doing, it has to make sense on its own as well. It has to be strong and clear in that way. I'm going to sign off, but I'm going to try to do another one of these before the end of October. So keep your eyes peeled, or whatever. Subscribe here. And also, if you're interested in learning on a a more detailed level with PDFs and a lot of more resources, please check out guitartipspro.com, or you can just go to patreon.com and look for me there. My channel on Patreon is called Guitar Tips Pro. And you can subscribe there for as little as $10 a month. And so there's that. Okay, I'll be back. Subscribe here, subscribe on Patreon, support that channel, and I'll be back answering more questions next month. Thanks, everyone. Take good care.